Welcome to Stoic Philosophy for Life. This is not just a place to listen to books, it's a space to feel them with your soul. Here, we illuminate your mind with timeless lessons. Awaken your inner strength, cultivate self-minded discipline, and guide your journey of personal growth. Every word is carefully chosen to reach what you're truly seeking: peace, clarity, and lasting transformation. If this feels like the place for you, hit subscribe and walk this path with us every single day. Now, put on your headphones, take a deep breath, and begin the journey of renewing your mind and your life. Success starts with you. How to become your best self. There is a moment in life when you look around and realize that no one is coming to save you. Not the mentor you hoped for, not the opportunity you have been waiting on, not even the encouragement you thought you needed. It is a moment both frightening and liberating. Frightening because you see clearly that the responsibility rests entirely on your shoulders. Liberating because once you understand that truth, you are no longer waiting for permission to begin. You start to see that success has never been about the world opening doors for you. It has always been about you building your own. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Epictetus taught that we cannot control the circumstances life throws at us, but we can control our own actions, our own decisions, and our own discipline. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. When you strip away the excuses, the comparisons, and the distractions, the truth is simple. You are the starting point of everything you want to achieve. Think about it. Every transformation you admire in others began with a private decision, a choice made quietly in the mind, long before anyone else saw the results. A man who becomes physically strong does not start with muscle. He starts with a single commitment to train. A woman who masters her craft does not start with talent alone. She starts with the decision to practice when no one is watching. The seed of every success is planted in the soil of self-responsibility. But here is the challenge. We live in a world that makes it easy to blame something else for where we are. It is tempting to believe that the reason you are not further along is because of luck or the economy or other people's actions. And yes, those things may influence your path, but they do not determine it. The Stoic mindset is to ask one simple question in every situation: what is within my control right now? Then act on that. If it is raining, you can complain about the weather, or you can train indoors. If someone betrays you, you can curse their name, or you can focus on strengthening your own resilience. There is an old saying that the chains of habit are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken. The habits you build or neglect each day are the invisible forces shaping your future. This is why self-mastery is not a luxury. It is the foundation. Success does not appear suddenly in your life. It grows from the small, consistent choices you make every single day. Whether those choices lift you or weigh you down depends entirely on you. Imagine your life as a fortress. Every stone in its walls is a decision you make: how you spend your morning, how you respond to setbacks, how you use your free time. Weak stones crumble under pressure. Strong stones stand for years. The question is, are you building a fortress strong enough to protect your future, or are you leaving gaps that the storms of life will easily break through? Here is the truth you must carry with you. You are both the architect and the builder of your own destiny. And like any great structure, building yourself takes time, patience, and the willingness to work through discomfort. The Stoics would tell you that there is no shame in starting small, only in refusing to start at all. You do not need to be perfect. You need only to take the next step with intention. In this journey, you will face resistance not just from the outside world, but from within. Your mind will tell you that you are not ready, that you are too tired, that you can do it later. But every time you choose discipline over comfort, you strengthen the part of yourself that is capable of greatness. That is the real success, becoming someone who can be relied upon not just by others but by yourself. By the end of this series, you will have the tools to strip away the illusions holding you back, build unshakable inner strength, and create a life aligned with your highest values. But it begins here with one decision to take full ownership of who you are and who you are becoming. The best version of you is not somewhere out there waiting. It is built brick by brick from the choices you make starting now. There is a dangerous illusion that traps many people. The belief that success is something external, something you must chase in the world rather than something you cultivate from within. We are taught from a young age to look outward towards grades, approval, money, status, and in doing so, we forget that the foundation for all achievement is built in the mind first. The Stoics understood this well. Seneca once wrote, "A man who is not master of himself will never be free." What he meant is that until you govern your thoughts, your actions, and your desires, you will remain a prisoner no matter how much the outside world appears to reward you. Control of the self begins with awareness. Most people live on autopilot, reacting to life rather than shaping it. They allow emotions to dictate their choices, fleeting moods to derail their goals, and the opinions of others to define their worth. The Stoic path is the opposite. It asks you to slow down to observe your own thoughts, as if you were a guardian at the gate deciding which ones are allowed to enter and influence you. Marcus Aurelius advised himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When you make this your daily practice, you begin to shift from being a passive passenger in life to being the one holding the wheel. Think of your mind as a garden. Every thought you entertain is a seed. If you plant seeds of self-doubt, resentment, and fear, you will eventually harvest bitterness and regret. But if you plant seeds of discipline, gratitude, and resilience, you will see growth in every area of your life. The challenge is that weeds grow on their own. Good seeds require deliberate planting and consistent care. This is why you must be intentional about what you feed your mind. The books you read, the conversations you have, and even the thoughts you repeat to yourself are either strengthening you or weakening you. This is where modern life becomes a dangerous trap. We are bombarded daily with distractions designed to pull our focus away from what truly matters. Social media rewards quick reactions, not thoughtful reflection. News cycles thrive on outrage, not wisdom. Entertainment numbs rather than nourishes. And yet every moment you allow yourself to be pulled into these currents is a moment you could have spent building yourself. The Stoics would remind you that time is your most valuable resource, far more precious than money, because once it is gone, it can never be reclaimed. Seneca warned, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Self-mastery, therefore, is not just about discipline. It is about reclaiming your time and energy from the things that drain them without giving anything back. It means asking yourself hard questions. How much of my day is spent reacting rather than creating? How often am I allowing anger, envy, or fear to take control of my actions? How many of my habits are moving me toward my best self, and how many are keeping me stuck where I am? The answers to these questions can be uncomfortable, but they are necessary. You cannot fix what you are unwilling to see. There is a story of a sculptor who was asked how he carved a magnificent statue from a block of marble. He replied, "I simply removed everything that was not the statue." In the same way, becoming your best self is less about adding more to your life and more about removing what does not belong, the distractions, the excuses, the destructive habits, and the limiting beliefs. Every time you cut away something that weakens you, you reveal more of the strength and clarity that were always there. This is why the Stoics placed such emphasis on daily practice. They understood that philosophy is not something to read once and then forget. It is something to live. Epictetus told his students, "Do not explain your philosophy, embody it." That means waking up each day with a clear intention for how you will act, speak, and think. It means reflecting at night on where you succeeded and where you fell short so you can improve tomorrow. Over time, this repetition transforms you not in a sudden burst, but in steady, almost invisible progress like the slow rising of the sun. One of the most powerful exercises you can adopt is the Stoic practice of premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. Each morning, imagine the challenges you might face, the delays, the insults, the disappointments. Then remind yourself that none of these can truly harm you unless you allow them to. This mental rehearsal prepares you to face the day with calm and resilience. It removes the element of surprise, turning obstacles into expected guests rather than intruders. When they arrive, you are ready. Another essential practice is voluntary discomfort. This is the act of deliberately making your life harder in small, controlled ways so that you are better prepared for real hardship when it comes. It could be taking a cold shower fasting for a day or walking instead of driving. These acts build mental toughness, but more importantly, they remind you that you can endure far more than you think. When you train your mind to accept discomfort, you remove fear from your life because fear is often nothing more than the avoidance of discomfort. If you have listened this far, chances are you are like me, unwilling to drift through life waiting for circumstances to change on their own. You know that change begins with you. Take a moment to think about the last 3 decisions you made. Did they move you toward your best self or away from it? The answer will tell you more about your future than any prediction or plan. Your life is built in these moments, in the choices you make when no one is watching. If you found this message meaningful, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. You never know, it might be the spark that changes their life. And remember to subscribe to the channel so you can continue receiving the tools and ideas that will help you master yourself and, in doing so, master your future. There is a quiet danger in chasing improvement. Many people start with good intentions, armed with plans, routines, and goals, only to find themselves exhausted, frustrated, and ready to give up after a few weeks. They think that progress should feel like a constant upward climb, that motivation will always be high, and that success will come in a predictable line. But the truth is, the journey to becoming your best self is not a straight road. It is a winding path with moments of clarity and moments of fog, seasons of energy and seasons of rest. The Stoics understood this deeply. They knew that the strength of a person is measured not in how they act when everything feels easy, but in how they persist when the fire of excitement has cooled. Marcus Aurelius, in his private meditations, often reminded himself that the work of a human being is not always pleasant, but it is always necessary. At dawn, he wrote, "When you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of if I am going to do what I was born for, the things I was brought into the world to do?" This is the Stoic reminder that motivation is fleeting, but discipline endures. If you rely on feeling ready, you will wait forever. If you act because it is the right thing to do, you will move forward even on the days you feel nothing. Consider the farmer who plants seeds in spring. He cannot rush the process. The sun and rain must do their part, but he must also do his tending the soil, protecting the crops, and removing weeds. There will be days when nothing seems to grow, when the work feels endless and the results invisible. But the farmer does not stop because he knows the harvest comes only to those who keep showing up. Your growth is the same. You may not see progress every day, but the habits you repeat in silence are the seeds of your future self. One of the greatest obstacles to long-term growth is the modern obsession with speed. We are told that faster is better, that if results are not immediate, something must be wrong. This belief destroys persistence. The Stoics lived in a time without such pressures, and yet they still warned against impatience. Epictetus taught, "No great thing is created suddenly any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. If you tell me you desire a fig, I answer you that there must be time." Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen. The same is true of your character, your skills, and your life's work. To sustain your journey, you must learn the art of self-renewal. This does not mean quitting when things get hard. It means finding ways to restore your energy so you can continue. Reflection is one form of renewal. At the end of each day, ask yourself what you did well, where you could improve, and what you will do tomorrow. Gratitude is another. By focusing on what you have rather than what you lack, you strengthen the part of your mind that sees abundance instead of scarcity. Rest is also essential. Even the strongest warrior must sheath his sword to sharpen it. Let us take the example of Admiral James Stockdale, a U.S. Navy officer and student of Stoicism, who was held as a prisoner of war for over 7 years in Vietnam. He endured brutal conditions, not knowing when or if he would be freed. Stockdale credited his survival to the principles of Epictetus. He accepted the reality of his situation without losing sight of his long-term purpose. He maintained daily routines, disciplined thought, and a focus on the small actions he could control. This balance facing hard truths while holding on to hope is known as the Stockdale paradox, and it is a powerful lesson in sustaining oneself under extreme pressure. In your own life, you may not face a prison cell, but you will face seasons where progress feels invisible, where the weight of challenges tests your patience. This is when you must draw on what the Stoics knew, that your control lies not in the speed of your success, but in the constancy of your effort. You must keep showing up, even when no one is watching, even when applause is absent. You must measure yourself by the discipline of your actions, not the pace of your results. A practical way to maintain this constancy is to lower the focus from outcomes to actions. Instead of saying, "I will be fit in 6 months," say, "I will exercise for 30 minutes today." Instead of saying, "I will be wealthy," say, "I will save 10% of my income this month." These are actions you can complete daily, and they build the momentum that sustains you. Over time, the results come not because you chased them desperately, but because you worked consistently. Another way is to limit the noise of comparison. When you look at others' successes without seeing their years of preparation, you poison your own journey with impatience. Remember, the Stoics taught that each person's path is unique. Your job is not to match another's pace, but to walk your own path with integrity. Ask yourself, am I better today than I was yesterday? If the answer is yes, you are winning. If you have listened this far, then you are already different from most. You are seeking wisdom, not shortcuts. That tells me you value growth for its own sake, not just for the applause it might bring. Take a moment now to think about one area in your life where you have been impatient. What small, consistent action can you commit to for the next 30 days without worrying about the end result? This is how you build strength that lasts. If this message resonates with you, share it with someone who may be struggling to stay committed to their journey. You never know. It could be the reminder they need to keep going. And do not forget to subscribe so we can continue walking this path of self-mastery together. Failure has a way of shaking the ground beneath us. It can make the most confident person question their abilities and the most disciplined person question their path. Yet if you look closely, failure is not the enemy. It is the teacher that no one wants, but everyone needs. The Stoics understood this with absolute clarity. To them, every setback was a chance to strengthen the mind, to refine the soul, and to grow closer to wisdom. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is not poetic optimism, it is a practical blueprint. Life will place obstacles in your path, not because the world is against you, but because those obstacles are the very tools that will shape you. Without resistance, a muscle does not grow. Without challenge, a character does not deepen. The moment you stop fearing difficulty and start seeing it as part of the process, you shift from a victim of circumstances to an architect of your own growth. Think of the blacksmith who forges a blade. The raw metal is useless until it has endured the fire and the hammer. The heat removes impurities, the blows shape it into strength. If the metal could feel, it might call this process torture, but the blacksmith knows that without it, the blade will never hold an edge. You are the same. Life's hardships are the fire and the hammer. They are uncomfortable, often painful, but they shape you into someone capable of meeting life with unshakable resolve. One powerful modern example is J.K. Rowling. Before the Harry Potter series became a worldwide success, she was a single mother living on welfare, rejected by multiple publishers. Each rejection could have been the final blow, but she did not stop. She kept refining her work, kept believing in the story she had to tell. Her failure did not end her, it prepared her. When success finally came, she was ready to meet it with the maturity and gratitude that only struggle can teach. The Stoics would tell you that failure is never final unless you decide it is. Epictetus said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In every loss, there is a choice. You can let it define you, or you can let it refine you. This is why it is dangerous to avoid failure entirely. The person who never risks, never tries, never steps beyond their comfort zone may avoid pain, but they also avoid growth. A life wrapped in safety is not a life fully lived. It is merely existence. To transform your relationship with failure, you must practice reframing it. Instead of saying, "I failed," say, "I learned something I could not have learned otherwise." Instead of thinking, "This proves I am not good enough," think, "This shows me where I must grow stronger." Language shapes thought, and thought shapes action. When you speak about failure differently, you begin to feel about it differently. A practical exercise is to keep a lessons journal. Each time you face a setback, whether big or small, write down what happened, how you felt, and what you learned. Over time, you will see a pattern emerge. The moments you once thought would break, you are the very moments that built you. This habit trains your mind to treat every obstacle as raw material for growth. Another Stoic practice is voluntary discomfort. This means deliberately putting yourself in situations that test you, fasting for a day, sleeping on the floor, walking in the cold without complaint. These acts are not meant to punish you, but to remind you of your resilience. When real difficulty arrives, you will have already proven to yourself that you can endure discomfort without falling apart. Remember, the goal is not to seek failure for its own sake, but to remove its power over you. When you stop fearing it, you free yourself to act boldly. You begin to take the chances that lead to greatness. The worst that can happen is you will learn, and learning is always a form of winning. If you have listened this far, I suspect you know that the path to your best self will not be smooth. You have probably faced your own share of setbacks already. Take a moment now to recall the last time you thought a failure was the end, only to realize later that it pushed you toward something better. That was not luck. It was proof of the principle the Stoics lived by: what stands in the way becomes the way. If this message resonates, share it with someone who is struggling to see the purpose in their pain. And remember to subscribe so you can continue receiving these reminders of your own strength. There is a kind of strength that cannot be seen in the mirror, yet it determines the quality of every moment you live. It is not the strength to lift heavy weights or run long distances, but the strength to remain calm when life tries to pull you apart. The Stoics called this strength inner fortress. It is the discipline of the mind, the resilience of the heart, and the unshakable clarity of purpose that no storm can wash away. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." These words are not just a comfort, they are a challenge. They ask you to take full responsibility for the only thing you truly own: your response. This is why two people can face the same hardship and walk away with completely different stories. One will be crushed, the other will be carved into something stronger. The difference is not in the event, it is in the mind that meets it. Picture a sailor in the middle of a storm. The winds are violent, the waves tower like walls, and the ship creaks under the pressure. The sailor has no control over the sea, no power to stop the wind, but he has complete control over his own actions, how tightly he grips the wheel, how precisely he adjusts the sails, and whether he keeps his eyes on the stars for direction. This is you in life's storms. You may not be able to calm the waters, but you can always steer the ship. Seneca warned that most people are like ships without a rudder, easily blown off course by every opinion, every rumor, every change in fortune. If you wish to become your best self, you must fix your hand firmly on the rudder of your own mind. This means cultivating habits that anchor you even when everything else feels uncertain. One powerful anchor is daily reflection. At the end of each day, ask yourself, did I act according to my values today? Did I waste energy on what I cannot control? Did I make choices that bring me closer to the person I want to become? These questions are like cleaning a mirror. You remove the dust of distractions so you can see yourself clearly. Without this practice, it is easy to drift into living on autopilot, reacting instead of directing. Another anchor is intentional stillness. In a world addicted to noise and movement, stillness is an act of rebellion. Take a few minutes each morning to sit in silence, focusing only on your breath. This simple habit teaches you that you do not need to chase every thought, every emotion, every urge. You can observe them without being pulled under. And when life throws something unexpected at you, this habit of inner stillness will allow you to respond with clarity instead of panic. Modern psychology confirms what the Stoics knew: stress does not destroy us. It is our perception of stress that does. People with a strong sense of control over their own minds experience lower anxiety, recover faster from setbacks, and make better decisions under pressure. The inner fortress is not a mystical concept. It is a trainable skill built from small, consistent actions. You do not need to meditate for hours or retreat into the mountains to build it. You can practice it in the middle of your daily life. The next time someone speaks to you harshly, resist the urge to snap back. The next time your plans are ruined, choose to adapt instead of complain. The next time fear rises, ask yourself, what is within my control right now? Every time you do this, you are adding another stone to your fortress walls. This kind of strength is invisible to the casual observer. No one will clap for you when you choose patience over anger or when you endure a loss without falling apart. But one day when a true crisis arrives, you will stand steady while others fall, and you will know exactly why. The work you did in silence will speak in that moment louder than any words could. If you have stayed with me this far, you are likely someone who understands that becoming your best self is not about quick wins or public recognition. It is about slow, deliberate mastery over the only thing you truly command yourself. Take that seriously, and no circumstance can truly defeat you. If this reflection has meaning for you, share it with someone who is searching for calm in chaos. And remember to subscribe to continue building the mental discipline that will carry you through anything. There is a silent enemy that lives within almost every person. It does not shout. It does not announce itself. It waits patiently, whispering doubts, planting small seeds of hesitation and feeding the habits that quietly rob you of the life you could have. This enemy is self-sabotage. The Stoics warned that the greatest obstacle to our success is often not the world, not other people, but ourselves. And yet, because it hides in familiar thoughts and comfortable patterns, many live their entire lives without confronting it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to be strict with himself, but tolerant of others. Why? Because he understood that the real battle was not with the people outside his palace walls. It was with the weaknesses within his own mind. It is easy to criticize others, but it is far more valuable to turn that critical eye inward and see where you have allowed laziness, fear, and distraction to rule over your intentions. Self-sabotage does not usually appear as dramatic self-destruction. More often, It is the quiet voice telling you to put off starting until tomorrow. It is the comfort of scrolling through your phone instead of facing the discomfort of deep work. It is saying yes to things you do not care about just to avoid saying no. Every time you choose short-term comfort over long-term growth, you are placing another stone in the wall that separates you from your best self. Epictetus taught that we suffer not from the events of life, but from our judgments about them. Self-sabotage thrives on false judgments. You tell yourself you are not ready when in truth you are simply afraid. You convince yourself that conditions must be perfect before you begin, when in truth, perfection is just an excuse to delay. You believe that small mistakes mean total failure, when in truth they are the necessary steps of any real progress. These judgments create a prison where you are both the guard and the prisoner. One way to break free is to deliberately face small discomforts every day. Seneca practiced this by wearing rough clothing, eating simple food, and reminding himself that comfort is a luxury, not a necessity. You can apply this principle in modern life by choosing tasks that challenge your willpower, waking up earlier than you want, finishing the difficult project before doing the easy one, or speaking up in a meeting when your instinct is to stay silent. Every time you push against your own resistance, you weaken the hold of self-sabotage. Another weapon against this enemy is the discipline of keeping promises to yourself. Most people would never break an important promise to a friend, yet they break promises to themselves without hesitation. They say they will eat better, exercise, save money, or work on a dream, but when the moment comes, they let the promise dissolve. Every broken promise erodes trust in yourself, and without self-trust, discipline cannot survive. The Stoics would tell you to guard your word to yourself as fiercely as you would guard it to someone you deeply respect. Self-sabotage also thrives in the company of comparison. When you measure yourself against others, you either feel discouraged because you are not where they are, or arrogant because you are ahead of them. Both states are distractions from the only measure that matters: who you were yesterday versus who you are today. Marcus Aurelius never compared himself to the philosophers of the past, except as a source of inspiration. He did not wish to be Epictetus or Socrates. He wished to be the best Marcus Aurelius he could be. You owe yourself the same clarity. Modern behavioral science agrees with the Stoics here. Habits are not broken by wishing, they are broken by replacing them with new patterns and making those patterns easier to follow than the old ones. If you want to stop sabotaging yourself, you must design your environment to work for you, not against you. Remove the temptations you keep telling yourself you will resist. Place the tools of your growth within easy reach. If your phone steals your focus, put it in another room when you work. If you skip exercise because it feels inconvenient, lay out your clothes the night before. The truth is, becoming your best self will require you to stand guard against your own impulses. Some impulses will try to protect you from pain, and that is fine. But many will try to keep you small, safe, and stuck. You cannot afford to obey them blindly. Each time you choose growth over comfort, you take a step toward the life you want. Each time you catch yourself in the act of self-sabotage and choose differently, you reclaim a piece of your own power. This journey is not about perfection, it is about progress. The Stoics were not flawless men. They struggled, failed, and sometimes fell short of their own ideals. But what set them apart was their commitment to return to the path every time they strayed. That is the standard you can hold yourself to, not never falling but never staying down. If you have listened this far, then perhaps you are ready to confront the quiet ways you have been holding yourself back. Take a moment tonight to write down the one habit or thought pattern that most often sabotages you. Then write down one small concrete action you will take to break it. Not tomorrow, today. And keep that promise to yourself as if your future depends on it, because it does. If this message speaks to you, share it with someone who needs to hear that their greatest enemy may be the one in the mirror and that they have the power to defeat it. And remember to subscribe so we can keep building the discipline, clarity, and resilience that will make you unstoppable. There comes a point in life when you realize that no amount of external achievement will quiet the noise inside if your inner foundation is weak. You can win awards, earn money, and gain recognition, yet still feel restless when you are alone with your thoughts. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If your mind is stained with doubt, bitterness, or envy, no victory in the outer world can truly satisfy you. Success is not about what you collect in life, but about the kind of person you are becoming every single day. And the journey toward your best self begins with mastering the smallest, most invisible choices: how you speak to yourself, how you respond to others, and how you shape your inner dialogue. To become your best self, you must first recognize that you are not in competition with the world. You are in competition with who you were yesterday. Epictetus reminded his students that no man is free who is not master of himself. When you wake up, the challenge is not to defeat others, but to overcome your own laziness, impatience, and excuses. The world will always tempt you with distractions, but your discipline will be tested most in the quiet moments when you choose between progress and comfort. Think of success as a garden. The flowers are your virtues and the weeds are your vices. Every day you either nurture growth or allow neglect to take over. And the truth is, the world will see only the garden you tend in silence. There is a dangerous illusion in believing that the right circumstances will transform you. You might think, when I get that job, I will be confident, or when I have more time, I will be disciplined. But the Stoics would shake their heads at such thinking. They would tell you that the person who wastes time now will waste time later, no matter how perfect the setting. The man who avoids discomfort in small things will avoid it in great ones. Becoming your best self is not a destination. It is a daily act of aligning your values with your actions. Just as a sculptor chips away stone each day to reveal the statue within you must chip away the unnecessary parts of yourself, the pride, the fear, the self-pity. Imagine a sailor who blames the wind for not reaching the shore yet never learns to adjust his sails. Life is the same. You cannot control the wind, but you can always control how you navigate it. This is where true power lies. Seneca wrote that it is not because things are difficult that we do not dare, but because we do not dare that they are difficult. Courage is a muscle, and so is self-discipline. You must train it in moments when no one is watching, when the reward is not immediate, when the effort feels almost invisible. That is the soil in which your best self grows. If you want a life of strength and clarity, begin by asking yourself one question each morning. What is in my control today? Let your energy be spent on what you can shape, not what you cannot. If a conversation goes badly, focus on your words, not theirs. If plans change, adjust with grace rather than resentment. Slowly you will notice that external chaos loses its power over you. And that is the turning point. The day you stop being at the mercy of the world, you step into the freedom. The Stoics spoke of a freedom born not from wealth or status, but from sovereignty over your own mind. And remember, becoming your best self is not about grand gestures. It is built in the smallest victories, resisting the urge to argue over something trivial, taking the extra step when you are tired, or choosing patience when frustration rises. These are the moments that forge character, and over time they accumulate into a quiet, unshakable strength that no misfortune can erase. If you have listened this far, it means you are already committed to growth. You are not satisfied with drifting through life on autopilot. Take a moment to reflect on the choices you made today. Were they in service of your highest self, or a surrender to your weaker impulses? Only you can answer this, and only you can change it. If you found this message valuable, consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear it today. You never know, You could be planting the seed of change in a life that desperately needs it. And remember to subscribe to stay connected to these lessons that can shape your journey. There is a silent truth that few admit to themselves. We often know what we should do, but we postpone it, telling ourselves that we will begin tomorrow. But tomorrow is a mirage. It is always one step ahead, never arriving, always leaving us stranded in the same patterns. The Stoics were clear on this matter. Do not waste time in the hope of a better moment. Marcus Aurelius urged himself each morning to rise and meet the day, as a soldier meets the call to duty. Every sunrise is an invitation to act, and every hesitation is a small surrender to the part of you that wants comfort more than growth. If you want to transform your life, the transformation begins in the next decision you make, not in some distant ideal. Your mind is like a river. Every thought, every choice is a drop of water shaping its flow. If you feed it with hesitation, self-doubt, and resentment, the current will run toward weakness. But if you pour in discipline, courage, and clarity, it will carry you toward strength. Epictetus said that you cannot control the external world, but you can control how you play your part in it. Your daily actions are your lines in the script. If you play them with intention, the story of your life will be one worth telling. And the beauty is that you do not need to overhaul everything at once. You only need to begin where you are with what you have. Think about the person who decides to read just one page of a meaningful book each night. At first, it seems insignificant, too small to matter, but in a year they will have absorbed hundreds of pages of wisdom that slowly reshape their thinking. Or the one who chooses to walk for 10 minutes each day. It is not a grand athletic feat, but after months their body and mind carry a different energy. The Stoics understood that excellence is built not in leaps, but in consistent steps. Seneca compared life to a play, saying it is not how long the performance lasts, but how well it is acted. Your best self is not born from rare bursts of brilliance, but from the steady rhythm of choosing the better path, even when no one notices. The world around you will always offer distractions dressed as opportunities. Social media will call for your attention. Other people's drama will try to pull you into their storms, and your own mind will tempt you with the comfort of inaction. The Stoics prepared for this by practicing what they called premeditatio malorum, anticipating the obstacles of the day before they arrive. This is not pessimism, it is armor. If you expect the path to be uneven, you will not stumble when the first stone appears. Every morning, imagine the possible frustrations ahead and decide in advance how you will respond. That decision becomes your shield against the chaos. In modern terms, think of it like strengthening your mental immune system. Just as your body fights off sickness by building antibodies, your mind resists emotional turmoil by building habits. Each time you choose calm over anger, focus over distraction, or action over procrastination, you are training your inner defenses. Over time, these responses become second nature, and you will find yourself unshaken in situations that once would have rattled you. This is the kind of transformation that lasts. It is not about pretending life is easy, but about becoming the kind of person who can face it with steadiness. Yet the Stoics would also remind us that self-mastery is not an isolated pursuit. It is not just for your benefit. When you become your best self, you lift others as well. Your patience calms tense situations. Your discipline inspires those who have lost theirs. Your courage opens the door for others to face their own fears. In this way, your personal growth becomes a silent act of service to the world. Marcus Aurelius often wrote about living for the common good, and he saw personal excellence not as self-centered ambition, but as a duty to the larger human family. The challenge then is to live each day with the awareness that your actions ripple beyond your own life. The way you speak to a stranger, the way you handle disappointment, the way you keep promises, all of it is part of the invisible legacy you leave behind. This is why the Stoics focused so much on virtue. To them, success without virtue was hollow, like a beautiful ship with no compass. And the compass of a meaningful life is built from honesty, courage, justice, and self-control. In practical terms, begin tonight. Write down 3 small actions you can take tomorrow that align with your highest values. They do not have to be dramatic. They simply need to be deliberate. Maybe it is waking up without checking your phone, reaching out to someone you have been meaning to encourage, or spending 15 minutes learning something that challenges your mind. Each choice is a vote for the person you wish to become. And the more votes you cast, the more that identity solidifies. If you have followed this message until now, you are part of the small group who is willing to do the hard work most avoid. Ask yourself in the last 7 days, how many decisions have truly reflected my highest self? And what is one change I can make this week to raise that number? No one else can live your life for you, and no one else will care about your potential as much as you do. If this message has stirred something in you, share it with a friend who may be ready to take that first step. Growth multiplies when it is shared, and subscribe if you want to keep strengthening this journey together. There is a moment, often just a fraction of a second, between what happens to you and how you respond. In that space lies your true power. Most people give that space away without realizing it. Someone cuts them off in traffic and they explode in anger. A message arrives with bad news, and they sink into despair. The Stoics saw this not as fate, but as a choice. Epictetus taught that it is not events themselves that disturb us, but the judgments we attach to them. If you master that small space between stimulus and response, you master yourself. And if you master yourself, the world loses its power to shake you. Think of your emotions as the wind. Left uncontrolled, they can throw your ship into chaos. But with skill, the same wind can carry you to your destination. Controlling yourself does not mean suppressing every feeling or becoming cold. It means channeling your energy in a direction that serves your values, rather than letting it scatter in every direction. Seneca compared anger to a wildfire. It destroys more than it protects. If you respond impulsively to life, you give away the steering wheel of your own ship. But when you pause, reflect, and choose your reaction, you hold the helm firmly in your hands. One of the greatest misconceptions is that self-control is a natural gift some people are born with. The truth is, it is a skill that must be trained. Just like an athlete strengthens their muscles through repeated practice, you strengthen your ability to remain calm through repeated challenges. Start with small moments when someone interrupts you. Resist the urge to talk over them. When plans change unexpectedly, choose curiosity over irritation. Over time, these small victories form a kind of mental armor. You will find that situations which once stirred chaos in you now pass like clouds over a still sky. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, war, and constant political turmoil. Yet his writings reveal a man who understood the value of inner stillness. He reminded himself daily that he could not control the actions of others, only his own reasoned choice. Imagine living with that mindset, not chasing every insult, not being dragged into every conflict, not losing your peace over every inconvenience. That is not weakness, that is strength in its most disciplined form. It is easy to react, it is difficult to remain composed, and the difficulty is what makes it valuable. We live in a world that rewards instant reactions. Social media demands quick opinions. News cycles provoke outrage. Everyone seems to be in a hurry to respond before they understand. The Stoic path is the opposite. It is slowing down enough to ask, what does this situation truly require from me? Sometimes the answer is action. Sometimes it is patience. Sometimes it is silence. And often the difference between a wise decision and a regrettable one is a few moments of reflection that most people never take. Self-control is not about making life easier. It is about making yourself stronger. Imagine you are a warrior entering a battlefield. You cannot stop the arrows from flying, but you can train your mind not to flinch at every sound. The more control you have over your inner state, the less the outer world can harm you. This does not mean life will be free from pain or disappointment. It means that those moments will not control the direction of your life. You will be able to walk through storms with your head high because your compass points inward, not outward. If you wish to live this way, begin by practicing the pause. Before you respond to anything, an email, an insult, a sudden change, give yourself 3 breaths. In those breaths, ask, will my reaction bring me closer to my best self or push me further away? You will be surprised at how often the wiser choice reveals itself when you give it time to emerge. And slowly, you will notice that you are no longer a slave to the first feeling that rises in you. If you have stayed with me this far, I believe you are ready for more than quick fixes. You are ready for a life built on intention rather than impulse. Reflect on the last time you reacted in a way you later regretted. What could you have done differently in that moment? That question is not about shame, it is about training. If this message has given you a new perspective, share it with someone who tends to react without thinking. It may give them the pause they need to choose a better path. And remember to subscribe so that we can continue building this inner strength together. Mastering your mind is not a single act of willpower. It is the quiet, repeated decision to direct your thoughts toward what serves you and to refuse what does not. Just as a river shapes the landscape over time, your daily thoughts and actions shape the terrain of your mind. The Stoics understood that discipline is not a cage, but a tool for freedom. Without discipline, your life is ruled by impulses, cravings, and emotions that change with the weather. With discipline, you create a steady path even when storms rage around you. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to act as nature intended to live, with purpose, clarity, and virtue, not as a leaf blown about by every gust of wind. Think of your mind as a fortress. Its strength depends on the consistency of the guard at its gates. Every day you allow certain ideas, emotions, and habits inside, and you turn others away. If you let in fear, bitterness, and laziness, the fortress weakens from within. But if you welcome focus, patience, and gratitude, the walls grow stronger. This is why small daily habits matter far more than occasional bursts of motivation. Seneca wrote that luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Preparation is the result of habits, reading instead of scrolling, training instead of sleeping, and choosing clarity instead of confusion. The problem is most people treat discipline as a temporary effort to reach a short-term goal. They work hard for a season, then slide back into old ways. But real transformation happens when discipline becomes part of your identity, not just a tool you pick up when convenient. Imagine a craftsman who sharpens his tools only when a big project comes. His work will always suffer. The master sharpens his tools every day, whether a project is ahead or not. Your mind and body are no different. You must sharpen them daily, not just when circumstances demand it. One practical way to build sustainable discipline is to anchor it to routines that already exist. For example, if you want to cultivate gratitude, write down 3 things you are thankful for right after brushing your teeth at night. If you want to develop focus, set aside 10 minutes for deep reading right after your morning coffee. The existing habit becomes the anchor, and over time, the new habit locks into place. This is not about dramatic change. It is about creating a system that makes discipline automatic. The Stoics practiced something similar. Epictetus advised his students to reflect at the end of each day, asking, "What did I do well? What could I have done better? What will I do tomorrow?" This daily review kept their minds sharp and their actions aligned with their values. It was not a punishment. It was a compass. By checking their direction every day, they ensured that they did not drift far from the course they intended to follow. But sustainable discipline also requires kindness toward yourself. This may sound strange, but it is essential. If you punish yourself for every slip, you will drain your willpower. The Stoics believed in progress, not perfection. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that a man's worth is not in never falling, but in rising quickly and returning to the path. The goal is not to build a flawless record, it is to shorten the time between a mistake and the decision to return to your principles. Over time, these habits form a chain. Every link is a day of practice, and the longer the chain grows, the harder it is to break. Your thoughts become more disciplined, your actions more deliberate, and your life more aligned with your highest self. Others will see the change in you not because you speak of it, but because you live it. And that quiet consistency will speak louder than any words. If you have listened this far, you are among the few willing to take control of their mind and shape their life with intention. Ask yourself tonight, what is one habit I can begin tomorrow that, if sustained for a year, would transform me? Then take the smallest possible step toward it. Share this message with someone who is ready to trade excuses for discipline, and subscribe so that we can keep walking this path of growth together. There comes a time when philosophy must leave the page and enter the bloodstream. Reading the words of Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus can light a spark, but that spark is meaningless if it never sets anything in motion. The Stoics were not armchair thinkers. They were men who lived in the storm, who tested their ideas against the harshest realities. Marcus wrote his meditations while leading armies on the frontier, not in the comfort of a study. Epictetus taught not from the seat of privilege, but from the memory of chains as a former slave. Seneca wrote about the shortness of life while facing exile and the threat of death. They knew that the measure of philosophy is not in how beautifully it is written, but in how courageously it is lived. You may think you are waiting for the right moment to act, to start the habit, to speak the truth, to take the leap. But the truth is the moment you are waiting for does not exist. Life will never line up perfectly. The conditions will never be flawless. There will always be uncertainty, fear, and reasons to delay. The Stoics would say that this is exactly why you must begin now. Every day you wait, you strengthen the chains of hesitation. Every step you take, no matter how small, begins to break them. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to move forward despite it. Seneca once wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare, but because we do not dare that they are difficult." The mountain you fear to climb may not be as steep as the one you imagine in your mind, and often the act of beginning reveals that the weight you carry is lighter than you thought. The Stoics believed that most of our suffering is born not from reality itself, but from the stories we tell ourselves about reality. Change the story and you change the meaning. Change the meaning and you change your life. Imagine your life as a book in which every day is a page. Some people keep rewriting the same paragraph, hoping the story will somehow change. But the only way to turn the page is to act. A small habit practiced daily will do more to change your life than 100 hours of wishing. The Stoics understood the power of deliberate repetition. Just as a blacksmith hammers the same piece of metal again and again to strengthen it, your repeated actions forge the steel of your character. But action without reflection is chaos, and reflection without action is paralysis. You must live in the rhythm of both, acting boldly, then stepping back to examine your course. The Stoics called this living in accordance with reason. When you act, act with full presence, not half-heartedly. When you reflect, reflect with honesty, not self-deception. This is how you turn motion into progress and progress into transformation. You will face setbacks. You will fail. You will break your own rules at times. But remember, the Stoics did not seek perfection, they sought resilience. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, "When you fall, return at once to the path." This is not weakness, it is strength. Because what defines you is not the number of times you stumble, but the speed and determination with which you rise. The discipline to begin again is the foundation of all greatness. And this is where the true test lies. Will you choose the comfort of staying as you are, or the discomfort of becoming who you could be? One is easy, but hollow. The other is hard, but full of meaning. The Stoics would say that the harder path is often the one worth walking because it shapes you in ways ease never will. Your best self is waiting at the other end of that path, not as a reward, but as the inevitable result of walking it every day. So here is your challenge before this day ends. Take one concrete action that your future self will thank you for. Do not think about it for hours. Do not plan it to perfection. Just take it. Make the call. Write the page. Begin the training. Clean the space. Learn the skill. The size of the action does not matter. The fact that you act does. Momentum will take care of the rest. If you have listened until this point, I believe you are no longer content to let life drift by. You have felt the pull of a deeper calling. You know that the Stoic way is not about avoiding pain, but about building the strength to endure it with grace. Take a moment now to think about the 3 decisions you made today. Did they move you forward or hold you back? Only you can answer, and only you can change the answer tomorrow. If you found this message meaningful, share it with someone who needs to hear that their life is still theirs to shape. And remember to subscribe so that we can walk this road of discipline, courage, and self-mastery together. When you look back on your life one day, you will not remember the distractions, the small irritations, or the moments of hesitation. You will remember the days when you stood firm in the face of difficulty, the choices you made when no one was watching the battles you fought quietly within yourself. These are the threads that will weave the fabric of your story. The Stoics understood that a life is measured not in years, but in the quality of the soul that lives it. And that quality is shaped moment by moment, decision by decision. If you have followed this journey from the beginning, you know now that success is not something you stumble upon. It is not given by luck or circumstance. It is built from within by mastering the mind, by choosing self-control over impulse, discipline over distraction, courage over fear. Marcus Aurelius Epictetus and Seneca lived in different times under different pressures, but they all carried the same truth. The world may change around you, but the true battlefield is always inside you. Becoming your best self is not an endpoint. It is a way of traveling through life. It is waking each day with the intention to live according to your values, and ending each night with the peace that you have stayed true to them. Some days you will fall short. Some days the world will hit harder than you expected. But the Stoic way is not to break under the weight. It is to stand, to adjust your stance, and to continue forward. The legacy you leave will not be in the trophies on your shelf or the numbers in your bank account. It will be in the strength of your character, the kindness in your actions, and the example you set for those around you. A single act of integrity can inspire more change than a lifetime of empty achievements. The ripples of a disciplined, courageous life extend far beyond what you can see. In this way, your personal journey becomes a gift to the world. So ask yourself now, if this were your last day, would you be proud of the way you lived it? Would you have spoken with honesty, acted with courage, and treated others with respect? The Stoics remind us that time is not something we own, it is something we borrow. And one day, it will be called back. The question is, what will you have done with the days you were given? If you take only one message from this entire journey, let it be this: your life is yours to shape. No one else will walk the path for you. No one else will fight the battles within your own mind. And no one else can take away the power you hold in the space between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. That space is your freedom. Protect it, use it, live it. If you have listened this far, chances are you are ready to take ownership of your life in a way most people never will. Take one step today, no matter how small, that brings you closer to the person you want to be. Share this message with someone who is ready to hear it. You may never know the full impact, but sometimes a single conversation can change a life. And remember to subscribe so that we can continue walking this path together, turning Stoic wisdom into a living, breathing force in the modern world. If this message stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Write one thing down that you'll start doing this week. 2025 doesn't magically change anything you do, and your future begins the moment you decide to move, even just a little.